I work at a small cafe on the corner of a quiet suburban neighborhood. It's a modest place but warm. Light oak tables, an old coffee machine, the aroma of fresh pastries in the morning. Everyone knows me here, regular customers, local families, even pizza delivery guys who sometimes stop by for a latte before their shift. I like this job. It's a refuge from the hustle of the big city, with the hum of the coffee machine and the soft chatter of guests. My life usually flows along a familiar track: work, home, a couple of close friends, books, and sometimes streaming shows before bed. I'm 29, and I've never chased adventure. But sometimes fate tosses one your way quietly without fanfare. That morning was like any other. Sunlight streamed through slightly dusty windows. Customers ordered coffee and bagels. I wiped tables, washed cups, checked for crumbs on the floor. While cleaning a table by the window where the last guest lingered, I noticed a black leather wallet under the chair. At first, I thought someone had lost it. I picked it up and peeked inside. There was a decent amount of cash, a few credit cards, and a business card with no name, just an odd symbol like an emblem. The bills were neatly folded, not a single crease. This wasn't an ordinary wallet, it looked too expensive. I hesitated. Normally, I'd take a fine like this to the police, but something urged me to try returning it to its owner myself. Maybe it was my habit of helping people, maybe curiosity, or a naive hope that a good deed wouldn't go unnoticed. I dialed the number on the business card. The man who opened the door looked like every movement cost him effort. His face was expressionless, his gaze icy. He didn't smile, didn't say thank you. He just took the wallet and slammed the door. I stood on the sidewalk, thinking that was the end of it. A flicker of unease stirred inside, but I tried to brush it off. People are different, I told myself. Just someone who values order. But that night was strange. When I got home, I found grocery bags by my door. Not mine, I hadn't ordered anything. Everything was neatly packed: fresh bread, milk, fruit. On one of the bags was a note: "So you don't have to waste time shopping." I looked around. Empty hallway, quiet street. No one. My heart beat faster. I thought maybe it's just gratitude. But something inside whispered it was. The next morning, I noticed a black SUV parked near my building. No license plates. It stood motionless, as if waiting. At first, I thought the driver was just resting, but when I left work that evening, the car was still there, like it was watching me. I tried to convince myself it was a coincidence. Maybe it's just someone's car from the neighborhood, I thought. But then I started noticing details. Only I seemed to see the car. It was always in the same spot, and sometimes shadows flickered behind its tinted windows. I told a friend about it. Maybe someone's just saying thank you. She tried to reassure me. Maybe someone wants to help. You did return the wallet. But I felt differently. This wasn't gratitude. It felt like surveillance. I realized my act of returning the wallet had set off a chain of events I hadn't anticipated. It was like I'd bought a ticket to a game whose rules I didn't know. Days passed, and things only got stranger. Envelopes, money, small gifts started appearing. Every time I tried to get rid of them, they came back. Sometimes they were things I actually needed, sometimes odd items, brands I'd never bought but that suited me perfectly. Work remained my sanctuary, but even there, I felt tension. Every time I saw a man in dark clothing or the black SUV near my building, my pulse quickened. I began to suspect this wasn't just gratitude. One evening, coming home, I saw a man by my building's entrance. He stood motionless, silent. In his hands was the same wallet I'd returned. He placed it on the step and left. On the wallet was a new business card with the same emblem. I sat on the floor in my hallway, holding the wallet, trying to make sense of it. It all felt frightening, yet it was as if I'd been pulled into a world where a good deed came with a price. Now I'm writing this on a forum. I need someone to hear me. Sometimes good deeds trap you in a way you can't escape. And that feeling cold, heavy, like a hand on your shoulder. I thought it was just gratitude, but now I'm not sure where the line between kindness and control lies. Sometimes I feel like I can no longer make simple decisions. Since the evening I returned the wallet, my life has changed. Every night, coming home from work, I caught myself thinking, something's wrong. Grocery bags, envelopes, the black SUV by my building, it all became part of my strange new ritual. The first bag appeared right at my apartment door. I was surprised. The groceries were neatly packed, as if someone knew exactly what I needed. Bread, cheese, apples, all fresh, like straight from the store. On the bag was a note. So you don't have to waste time shopping. I didn't immediately realize this wasn't just a kind gesture. Unease stirred inside, impossible to ignore. Why no signature? Why were the groceries so perfectly chosen? I left the note on my kitchen table, trying not to think about who'd done it. The next day, I decided to see what would happen next. Coming home after my shift, I saw the black SUV again. It stood in the same spot, motionless like a statue. I froze, gauging the distance. No one was visible, but my heart raced wildly. At work, I tried to distract myself. Customers, orders, the hum of the coffee machine, it helped keep my mind off the strangeness. But my thoughts kept circling back. Every step up the stairs, every turn of the key in the lock, every phone call, it all felt like part of a pattern I didn't understand. A couple of days later, an envelope appeared. It was on my table when I got home. Inside was money, enough to cover a month's rent. On the envelope was written, "We take care of those who make the right choice." I sat on the floor holding the envelope. Fear and confusion mixed. Who were these people? How did they know where I lived? Why me? I tried talking to my friend about it. She listened, then said, "Maybe someone's just grateful. You did return the wallet." I didn't believe her. This wasn't gratitude, it was control. They knew what I'd done, and now they were watching me. A week after returning the wallet, packages started arriving almost daily. Sometimes food, sometimes things I needed. And always with notes. To make your life easier, we care. You made the right choice. Every time I tried to get rid of them or return them, they reappeared. I didn't call the police or tell anyone. I was afraid any action would be seen as defiance. The black SUV kept parked by my building. Sometimes the driver sat inside, sometimes he stepped out and vanished, not noticing me. I started feeling like every move I made was being tracked. Even in the store or cafe, I felt watched. One evening, coming home after a shift, I saw a man in a dark suit on a bench by my building. He didn't approach, didn't speak, just watched. I quickened my pace, but he gave a slight nod like a greeting. My heart pounded like it would burst. The next day, an envelope was under my door. Inside were photos of me taken at the cafe and on my way home. I sat on the floor holding them, unable to breathe. This wasn't a game. This was surveillance, and I was at the center. I tried to figure out what to do. Ignore it, pretend it wasn't happening. But every day, packages, envelopes, the car, the man on the bench, it all came back. I started writing everything down, events, times, details. It was my surveillance diary. A few days later, another package arrived. Inside was a book I'd long wanted and a note. "For your understanding." Tucked between the pages was a business card with the same emblem. On it were the words, "We value good deeds, but they come with responsibility." I trembled holding the card. Everything felt like both care and a threat. My apartment was no longer a home. It was a place where I was watched. I started noticing oddities in daily life. New cars at neighbors' houses, unfamiliar faces on the street, calls from unknown numbers. I knew it was part of the pressure. The more I tried to stay normal, the more I felt controlled. Every night I checked windows, doors, the building's cameras. I installed new locks, tried not to show fear at work, but it grew inside. And every day, packages, envelopes, cars confirmed that my act had sparked something beyond my control. I realized this wasn't just gratitude, it was a debt I hadn't asked for but that now hung over me. The more I tried to ignore it, the heavier it pressed. One evening, there were packages and an envelope by my door. This time, a sheet of paper with the phrase, "You can always rely on us." The words sounded like a threat, though there was nothing overtly menacing about them. I realized the line between care and control had blurred. I'd been pulled into a world where returning a wallet meant being watched, where every step was recorded. I sat on the floor, holding the envelope and paper, and realized for the first time, I was no longer just a waitress. I was part of something I hadn't asked for. And every day, every package, every car confirmed, the world I knew was gone. Since then, my life has been a balancing act between fear and curiosity. I couldn't leave, couldn't refuse. And every day I asked myself, is this help or the start of dependence? From the moment packages, envelopes, and the black SUV entered my life, I tried to hold on to my routine. At work, I pretended everything was fine. I smiled at customers while pouring coffee, joked with colleagues, but inside, anxiety simmered. Every day, I checked the doorstep, windows, stairs, but the packages kept coming. One morning, I opened my door and found an envelope with money. The amount was more than enough for rent. On the envelope, "So you don't have to worry about bills." I tucked the money into my bag, feeling relief and fear at once. It was help I hadn't asked for, but help always has a price. The next week, I got a call from an unknown number. The voice was calm, but every word felt like a command. "We see how you're managing. If you want, we can make your life even easier." I froze, unsure how to respond. I tried to laugh it off, pretend it was spam, but the voice mentioned details of my life only I knew. Then I met him face to face. The man from the SUV approached me as I walked home from work. His suit was impeccable, hands clasped. He didn't smile, but his gaze was colder than ice. "We value your actions," he said, "but the value of an action is measured by responsibility." I didn't fully grasp what he meant at first, but soon it became clear. Tasks started appearing. Nothing illegal, at least on the surface, but everything had a double meaning. I was to deliver packages, pick up papers, pass them along. It felt like helping a neighbor, but I knew these were tests, checks, surveillance. Each task ended with the phrase, "We're always here if you make the right choice." I couldn't refuse. Every time I tried, the next day's packages were even more necessary. Problems I couldn't solve on my own suddenly vanished. A broken dishwasher fixed, an internet bill paid. Everything happened as if someone was managing my life. A month after returning the wallet, I met the boss in person. He came to the cafe, sat in the corner, and watched me. I didn't know how to act. My normal life, coffee, customers, chatter, had become a stage for surveillance. "You're doing well," he said when I approached to clear his table. "Do you understand that good deeds are just the beginning? They create a debt." I didn't know how to respond. He wasn't threatening, but every word felt like an order. Kindness had become a trap. I noticed I'd stopped making decisions on my own. Every step, every detail, it was all being evaluated. A week later, he sent a letter. "We know you want to be independent, but independence is an illusion when actions have consequences." I trembled as I read it. Everything was cold, formal, but terrifyingly personal. Each word quickened my pulse. And with every new package, letter, or call, I understood this wasn't care, it was control. The pressure became psychological. I had to carry out tasks that seemed simple, deliver a package, pick up a document, meet someone. But with each task, I felt I was becoming part of someone else's game, and my life was dissolving. Every morning, I checked the doorstep, every evening, the street. Sometimes I saw people in dark clothing, sometimes the SUV, motionless, watching. I stopped going out alone at night. Work was a refuge, but even there I felt the boss's gaze. One evening, the SUV blocked the road. Inside was a familiar silhouette. I felt that any attempt to escape the control was futile. A couple of days later, an envelope arrived. You're handling the debt well. But remember, a debt is not just responsibility but a choice. I knew there was no choice. Refusing the help meant chaos. And every time I tried to resist, the packages, letters, and help returned more insistently. The pressure became unbearable. I started suspecting friends, thinking they might be connected to this. My life vanished. Friends noticed I'd become withdrawn, cautious, exhausted. I realized kindness has a price, and that price is dependence. I hadn't asked for help, didn't want this power over my life, but I was already entangled. The boss sent another package. Inside was a notebook. On the first page, every action has consequences. Every decision creates a debt. I opened the notebook and realized it was a guide to living in a world where kindness and debt were one. I was part of that world, on the edge between gratitude and fear. My life became a series of tests, packages, envelopes, calls, and surveillance. Every event was a trial, a test of my readiness to accept a dependence I didn't want. And every day I asked myself, is this help or a trap? I woke up feeling watched. A faint noise outside, shadows of passers-by, everything seemed significant. Every day since returning, the wallet was a test of endurance, caution, and readiness to live in a world where kindness had a price. Packages, envelopes, and the SUV became part of my life. I tried to ignore them, live as before, but fear seeped into every move. Even coffee at the cafe brought no peace. I felt the boss's gaze in every familiar face, every stranger. A few weeks later, another package arrived. Inside was a key, not to my apartment but to something else. On a piece of paper. For your safety and convenience. I sat on the floor holding the key and realized my life was no longer mine. Every step, decision, thought, it was all controlled, checked, watched. I tried to resist, ignored the packages, didn't answer the calls, didn't do the tasks, but everything returned more persistently. Groceries, bill payments, small conveniences all tied me to them. Every intervention was a test. I knew any no was defiance. And the more I tried to hold on to independence, the stronger the pressure became. One evening, the SUV blocked the road. Inside was the boss's silhouette. He stepped out, approached slowly, and his eyes met mine. Do you think you can just walk away? He asked. His voice was steady, but it carried power. I didn't know what to say. Any word felt like a mistake. I wanted to run, hide, disappear. But I knew it was impossible. Every step was recorded, evaluated. That evening showed me the price of a good deed. Kindness had become a trap. And the trap was clever. Help, care, attention. It all turned into dependence. Days became a nightmare. Every move was controlled. Packages, envelopes, favors, all made life easier while stripping away freedom. I hid in work, but even there I felt watched. Every call, glance from colleagues, customer, it all seemed part of the surveillance. I wrote everything down. Every package, envelope, call, moment, I felt the boss's presence. It was my way to maintain control, to see the bigger picture. A few weeks later, another package arrived. The note inside. You can always rely on us. Those words were simpler than a threat but heavier than anything. They meant, you can live, but only by our rules. That realization, that my life was no longer mine, was unbearable. I tried to escape. One evening, I didn't go home, took a different route, tried to hide. But within minutes, I saw the SUV in the distance. It was waiting for me. There were no accidents in this game. A couple of days later, a letter arrived. You tried to leave. We saw, but we care. Now you understand the price of a good deed. My heart trembled. I sat on the floor, holding the letter, feeling fear. It wasn't a threat, it was reality, one I'd entered willingly, but that had become a trap. I tried talking to friends, colleagues, but I couldn't tell the truth. It would sound insane. And every time I tried to share, I felt someone listening. My life became a cycle of tests, packages, envelopes, help, and control. Everything made life easier while taking away freedom. I couldn't make decisions. Every step, detail, glance, it was all recorded. I realized kindness has a price, and that price is a dependence I didn't want. Every package, envelope, favor was a debt I hadn't asked for, but that now hung over me. One evening, the final package arrived. Inside was a notebook, keys, money, and a note. You know the rules. Kindness is a debt. You can always rely on us. I sat on the floor, holding everything, and realized my life was no longer mine. I couldn't go back, couldn't forget that it all started with one act, returning the wallet. I'm writing this on a forum because I need someone to hear. Sometimes good deeds become a trap. And the price of that trap is freedom, independence, a normal life. Sometimes I wake up at night and wonder, was it kindness or just a debt I didn't ask for? And as I live, I know the price of a good deed can be higher than you're willing to pay. The worst part is realizing you've already paid without even knowing when it happened.